Here we
What's up?
go. Hey, good evening, everyone. Dave Wilson of the results. You can tell that's starting. Of the Ring of Fire show tonight here with Travis Lane from New Mexico, and we're both Army veterans, so we got something in common, right, Travis?
Yes, sir.
And tonight we're going to talk about just two colleagues talking about kind of like the top 10 things that possibly you could be losing your job or signs to look for. So we'll be right back after this video. All right, we're back. All right, hey, everybody. The show tonight, when we're going to be talking about just different topics about possibly losing your job, different signs, but I don't want anybody to really, this is a serious conversation. Some people don't want to have it. I mean, it's just part of it. You don't want to be able to let go. I think everybody in their life, one time or another, possibly Travis, have, been fired, let go, and the wording, and you're
Replaced,
upset.
the job's been outsourced. There's a plethora of reasons that these happen for sure.
And it does, and it really, really takes a hard on someone. It did myself through my one experience. It's a really good thing about your family. You got where are you going to get your money when you're let go for your paychecks and benefits. It all blends in.
Absolutely, yes.
So I'm just going to start up with one tonight. And some of these things I've had questions previously come up. Oh, we already got some people here. Let's see. Oh, we'll say hello. Hey, Tuvi, all the way in Florida. He's the man here.
Tuvi, yeah.
And we have Rob. Hey, Rob. Hope all's going well. He's over in, I think, Pittsburgh also near. The first one is your boss wants to meet you on one-on-one. Oh, look at that. I ran the wrong one. Geez, you can tell this is a night. Work just got a lot easier. And what I mean by that is new tasks coming in, you don't feel like you have much to do, and you could be thinking in your mind that maybe they're letting somebody else do the work. Do you agree with that kind of, or?
If work got a lot easier, that could be, we're in obviously, well, let's put it to the test of what we're looking at right now as the paradigm shift has changed from in-person to remote.
That's
and
right.
Especially since, the technological innovation, people have been realizing that you don't need to necessarily be in an office for that 8 to 5. So work can get easier if you utilize technology. So it might be a red flag historically looking at it, in this, dare I say, antiquated way that we look at work, right?
Yeah.
So it could be a good thing, could be a bad thing. It depends, and a lot of people ask these questions but the real thing is, what industry are you in? If you're working hands-on in a trade industry, it's probably a bad thing, right? They don't trust you to get the work done and have, and overlook the safety of others. However, in maybe an IT, industry is probably not a bad thing. But again, being a subject matter expert in your field is probably, yes, to be exactly.
I know. And I agree what you just said before. I didn't think about, and we're going to get into that. But by if you're let go, I didn't even realize with the Zoom, that didn't even come to my mind, thinking how somebody does that now. But that is something, for me.
Yeah.
I would think like if I would come in, I think you would start knowing something. If all of a sudden your workload's like cut in half, I'd be like, whoa. But that's just a sign. It could be a sign, like you said. If you want to take the next one.
Yes, perhaps you feel in over your head. Now, again, I think this is contextual. Like if you're in your first 3 to 6 months and you shouldn't be evaluated before that, obviously, if you're a larger firm, company, that's normal to feel that, got that imposter syndrome happening in the earlier stages of your integration into a company, as you're kind of, internalizing the roles and responsibilities and the processes. But if you're 3-4 years in and you feel like you're in over your head, I'd imagine you might feel an impending doom heading your way that you cannot stop.
That's so set up to fail. I thought about that. I was like, set up to fail. And I get the words there, some management team could probably do that. Let's set the person up to fail and feel overwhelmed, that's something there. Let's see, a bit overwhelmed. He got the one before us, so he's ahead.
Well, I mean, especially now with like, we went through like a recession here in the last year.
Yeah.
Things have changed, obviously. So a lot of roles and responsibilities have been kind of delegated and dispersed through the aggregate of a company. So you might feel overwhelmed because of that, or you might be feeling overwhelmed because your aptitude for that role or position isn't necessarily adequate. Or exactly, yes. So it's very polar. Is it one or the other? So
that does, and I understand what you're saying there, and like what you're saying is, again, on that side of what's happened now, what's in the Zoom, and I'm kind of glad you brought that up, because the next one, did you screw up big time recently? Did you make a big mistake? And there, like you said, if you've got 4 or 5 years in the company, or even like 10 to 12, and you make a big mistake, like it says big recently, but can you get fired for it alone? I'd say yes and no. I mean, it depends.
How much? It's all quantifiable, and also, especially in the culture we're in now, if you made one of the I would say like hard mistake would be math, obviously messing up on budget or kind of responsibility, but the softer stuff is obviously more on the PR side. If you mess up something that is an unforgivable, zero tolerance, that's a big mistake, and you're done. So
like you said, it depends on the field too. I guess the field industry, what type of mistake, and the one person asked that, I wrote that down, and that is a good question. The next one, your boss wants to meet you one-on-one suspiciously often.
I would, if I looked at that specifically alone by itself, I'd be like, that's a good thing. It's a positive thing. However, if you're not confident that you're doing the best job and above all rest and meeting and exceeding standards, it's probably not a good thing.
No.
So that usually means
that over and over.
grooming and tailoring for the next position up is what I would say. However, I think which one it is.
Yeah, and when you add all these up, I want to say hi. Oh, look at my cousin on it. Hey, Anne-Marie, I do see you on social media over there on Facebook. Hope all's well. But yeah, when I was called in a couple of times, it does make you, I don't care how many years you have, it doesn't matter. You still get that feeling you're getting called into the office, and like you said, it could be a good thing or not. I've been put into where, they've talked to us about putting somebody on a PIP plan, like a PIP plan, and there I tell everybody, listen, I'm okay with those type of plans if they're utilized correctly. I was on one once, I'm not afraid to say, and my boss really did it to save me, help me from others. So with the plan that I did, as long as you lay it out for that person, it's not always a negative thing right off the bat. And that's what I learned from it. I don't know about yourself.
I mean, the PIPs everyone takes them differently. And the way you kind of execute and express the need for those is probably going to be related to how successful it is, for sure. Right.
And that's what I did, because I had a couple things just to concentrate on. I did that. It kind of was like a wave. It was kind of over.
Yeah. You're missing usually 1 or 2 skills or 1 or 2 tools within a process that are really, hindering your growth. So it's not, if you're viable for a PIP, it's going to be, you're able to make the next level. It's just, you're missing a couple small issues. That's it. Yeah.
And like people say, I mean, how negative is, but it can go both ways. They can be doing it a sign of saying, okay, we're going to get somebody, let's just do this. He doesn't, he or she, then they go to the next one. This all comes in together. And the next one, this one I kind of like. It's the part about your boss is becoming strangely distanced from you. All right.
Yes.
I don't want to always say, oh, wow, I've had this happen to me. I feel like I've been let go a couple of times, but I haven't. But I've been in that position to where my boss was not talking to me as much. They come in the office, the branch, they kind of bypass you. and you get that feeling. And I don't know about what you feel on that.
It's one of those things, important meetings, important or critical information is something that if you're not in on those, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to get let go, but it doesn't, I would definitely say is a hard sign of your vertical mobility being halted, stagnated, static. It would not be,
Oh, good. That's why Chris here at Heckman, he works at Blue Triton. It was formerly Nestle Waters, and Chris, they did a great thing over there for their hourly workers. And before an employee would get terminated, or I don't like the word fired, or let go, they had a group from another building, another site, that they had a group of people that they would present it to, whether it was justified or not. I like that kind of, you know.
Yeah, no, I can see that for sure. And I'm not personally a big fan of PIPs. I feel like the PIPs are better implemented in person verbally,
Right.
and you do it, through a step-by-step process. It's very iterative. I feel like, especially being ex-military,
Yeah, I know.
we used to go through those monthly reviews and PIPs, etc. They're very complacent, going through the motions. There's just a paperwork trail that needs to be done, to hit check boxes.
And when you
If you do have a
go ahead. No, go ahead. Nope,
if you do have a BIP plan, you need to have hard KPIs to really, track, the trends of the personal growth for that employee, that asset. So if you don't have actual hard quantifiable data,
right.
it's really subjective, and it's not something that you're actually interested in improving upon. So
that makes sense. And when you said about the military, and we've both been in it, I always say, why wasn't the military a high turnover, right? You had 4 years, you did 4 years. It's because you did what you were told. But it was like you weren't there was sometimes I wasn't happy in the military. Boy, I tell you what, but your leaders, your NCOs, everybody, you listened to what they said.
Yes.
That's it. You did the job. And then when you didn't, there was few that were let go, if you want to say it like that, but it was very rare, once you made it past basic. But that tells me right there, it's the structure. You got that hard structure. Everybody has to do it the same way. It's hard to treat somebody a lot differently, because like when you were a leader. Yeah.
So that's, if you want to kind of segue to that, it's, there's not much return. There's not much positive reinforcement in the military, right? Because of very old kind of approach to leadership. And there was only so much room for, vertical growth. So, the higher echelon of either NCOs or officers would kind of, groom and pick their, the high speeds, the people that really went above and beyond the higher metric, for being successful. And everyone else was, well, your turn will come, either that or take your turn, which means, do what you have to do to stand out above and beyond the rest, head and shoulders above.
Right.
So there's only so much room. So that kind of goes into the whole thing where you go into the PIP plan. It's like, just because you're not getting, this amazing, outreach from your, the executive or management level doesn't mean that you're chopped liver or nixed. But at the same time, it also means you're not going to the next level.
Yeah. And some people are okay at that, where they're at.
Complacency. Yeah, absolutely. Because
it's all. Some people don't want to do it. Be an NCO, that they're going to exit the military, they're going to get out, and that's what it's about. You do your time, you serve, you leave. You want to stay, that's fine. And I know I got off as soon as we hit the military. I go with that.
Yeah, absolutely.
The next one, some of the signs some people are saying is coworkers avoid you. Now, that I believe would be more like coming into the office and whether what field, and maybe just how a lot of rumors start, and people. Don't tell this person this. Don't tell this person. It's very hard to control.
It's that's a whole animal in and of itself. Humans are tribalistic in nature. We find commonalities that place us together and dissimilarities that ostracize us from others.
Right.
It's an us versus them mentality. It's always been that way. You can see it in the military. You can see it in the civilian sector. You can see it in a job. Now, even an example, you can see it in a job as, hey, we go to basketball during lunch. That's our group.
Right.
Hey, we work on the same crew. That's our group. Hey, you are not in our church on Sundays. You're not in our group. Right. So it's similarities versus dissimilarities that kind of, bring us together or separate us. So that's just human tribalism. So
that's why I'm glad I brought you on here like this, because you're coming in with a different thought process, even as myself. And that's what it's about discussing. I want everybody to know that this is not like we're not giving you the information to say, I'm going to be losing my job. It's just a great conversation that some people do go through this, and The next step was some people were saying they even stopped inviting you to important meetings. Now, on the professional side, you would know a lot in, let's just say in your group of what you do, project management. That's a big sign, I can imagine.
Yes, that would most definitely be a red flag.
Yeah.
Better update your resume. Absolutely.
Yeah. Hey, there's Bill. You know this guy.
Yes, Bill.
Hey, Bill. Everybody, please, and connect with people on the show here. They're really a lot of great colleagues, and they know a lot, and I really appreciate them coming on the show all the time. The next one is kind of like the same as a PIP, is your performance reviews are just medium, average, just a couple sentences, somebody, they don't put much thought into it.
Yes.
And that's, on my take of that is I've been on that side and I've looked at it and I know people are busy. That's my process was always, well, they're busy. They have to do 50 of them performances. It was just like the same thing.
Right. And again, I think that's kind of a cut and copy kind of process a lot of the time. Hey, Bill. Like I've had, even my past jobs in military, et cetera, it's above and beyond, comparison to peers.
Right.
But it's also who is giving you the performance review too. Is it someone you work with? Is it someone who knows you? Is it someone who's worked with you? So, you got to look at it at all angles. And I hate to come at it like everything's bad news or everything's good news.
Right.
And, each situation you have to look at very dynamically, because you could be working yourself up for nothing, or you could be ignoring that impending doom we talked about earlier.
And that's where your family, that's where I want people to think, and I'm going to go up the curve here for a minute, is that's where I believe if you ever start feeling these feelings, and if I had to reinvent the wheel there, I believe that is what your human resources there is for. Human resources is there for a reason. They're there to help you. They have to be very, they're right in the middle, but they have a job to do. So if you're feeling this, you shouldn't have to feel this. And I always say to people when I've had them under me, it's like, go to HR,
right.
let them talk to the manager. Maybe it's something that they can resolve. And I don't want anybody to be afraid to go. And I think that's what happens sometimes.
Yeah, and I think that's important to really highlight and point out, because you really don't, as a corporation or company or firm, don't want to let go of people unless you absolutely need to or have to, because
right.
That goes into the culture. You don't want other people looking for the next job that's more secure, and they don't want to feel like their head's in the chopping block every day because they make a mistake. So I'm a big advocate of repurposing, because that culture can be family in a way.
Say that again.
Repurposing
and reculturing.
Yes, I would say it's like a reallocation of human assets into a more appropriate role. Okay. That way you don't have to get rid of them, but you can still get the production that you need for that level of pay. So
yeah, and I think you can actually you can save on your retention, and like you said,
tenure and loyalty for sure.
Yeah, if you've been with a company for 10 years and something's going on, there's a problem. You've been with a company 10 years, now a year maybe, but even then, 10 years, the loyalty, all right, your boss could have changed. You could have a new manager.
Most likely have been by that point, yes.
And that's what happens there. And I'm going to go back to exactly what you said. It's like, who's giving you the review? That new manager that's come in, is he giving you the review that they don't even know you? They've only gone by, let's see what this person says about Joe, this one, you know what I mean? Yeah,
that'd be absolutely useless for sure.
And that is. The next one is, and I've seen it, is, they hire somebody with the same skill set that's just been hired. That is a hard pill to swallow. I'm sorry.
Is the company expanding? I try to get all the information, but yeah, the same skill set depends on the size of the company, the region, the district or whatever you're looking at. But if it's obviously, super saturated within your circle,
right?
Yeah, that's yeah, you don't want to ignore that for sure.
And I kind of agree what you said there is the same thing as, when you're hiring somebody, sometimes you get yourself all worked up for nothing.
Yeah, absolutely.
You might be, just like when you said, I say something negative, you're saying something more positive. It's kind of like it balances itself in a way.
Yes, and I always try to look at things differently because, everyone has that nagging, insecurity in the back of their mind when they see, your boss go in with your boss's boss into a room with closed doors. Are they
Right.
talking about me? I mean, who wouldn't have that, right?
It's common. And like Rob, can you badmouth the company after you leave it? Rob, I suggest you don't. Maybe 10 years down the road, but there were some of the things that we're going to talk about shortly of what not to do after you've been let go. And you want to say it, but it's hard.
I don't think you can necessarily badmouth things just wrong. It's unprofessional, right?
Yeah.
However, if a company, I've had interviews ask me, why are you leaving your company? And that kind of has this intersectionality that you have to deal with very delicately and very appropriately, because you don't want to badmouth them because it's unprofessional, but you also want to show that you're competent and you're able and value. You're competent and understand what your value is and where you can be and where you want to be versus where you are. Right. So again, you can't avoid it unless you want to give, a Google answer, which is absolutely, I think, in my opinion, insulting because it's absolutely inauthentic and disingenuous.
I try not to do that. I've never, because it's just bad. If you're a professional, and even if you're not, I don't want to say like professional entry level, but it can come back at you, with the social media and everything like that. Employers looking at social media, a lot of people don't realize, Rob, if you were to badmouth somebody on social media, they're going to look. Companies, before they hire somebody, listen, they do it. They look at your social media pages. And I've done it. I've looked at people's, and I don't make a judgment off of their social media. But if you're going to be a person that's going to sit there and bash a company, that can affect.
No, that'd be horrible. It's the same thing in a PIP, right? You're not going to bash your employee, but you are definitely going to point out deficiencies and where you can improve upon. It's the same process. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Everything was, dandelions and a field of soft grass. Why would we be leaving for looking for another job? So, realistically, you can, I wouldn't say do it. I would say delicately approach that. Yes.
I like how you say that. That's a good one there, because everybody, again, and I think a lot of people that are watching sometimes when they, if it relates to you, you feel that feeling. And everybody's had that, like what's happened to you. And, let's just answer that now. What is the best way to do when you are let go and you're going to another company and you're getting interviewed? Do you let them know that I was terminated? Do you let them know that I was furloughed? Do you say I was fired? Do you say you were, laid off? That's, in today's world, I feel like just being honest. That's me, but honest. Oh, wow. Would I say I was fired? Sometimes I don't know. I don't know.
I think you can re-articulate the issues there. Yeah. If you see, okay, give me an example and I'll re-articulate for you.
All right, an example. Let's see, how am I going to say this?
Where were you let go?
If I was let go and terminated, and then I was going into the same industry, say 5 months later, I get an interview and they say, why were you let go? Would I say, well, you've been with the company for 10 to 15 years. That to me, if they were sitting 15 years as an interview, I'd be saying, wow, 15 years, what happened? Now that's what I'm assuming they're saying in their mind. So I'm going to say, well, I left because our visions didn't meet.
Well, first off, they don't know that you left. They don't know you got fired. They know that your tenure there has ended. Right. Now, you guys obviously didn't have a parallel or a congruent, vision for the future where you thought that, A should have happened where B is actually happening, which was not something you could agree with or deal with. You can, sometimes it's just simply that. I had an issue with the company with the way they do forecasting models. And it was just literally a standard mean, right? There was no weighted moving averages. There was just no seasonality, no variables, nothing. It was just as simple as it comes. So, I mean, if you have a plethora, a myriad, an amalgamation of issues like that,
Right.
that might not be a place that is utilizing your skill set, your interests, your vision, your integrity, and
Right.
you might not feel that you're valued in that set. So, and if you express that, you might be let go because you're not being a team player. So is that a bad thing? No, of course not.
If you want to take this from Rob,
especially the headhunter doesn't know what she's talking about. For example, I started March 3rd and 90 day will be June 3rd. She was telling me I'll have to wait until July 3rd.
For benefits. I believe it was for his benefits. They lied. He's saying, they lied. I think that's what it was.
I mean, I hate to be that guy, but check your contract. You know what I mean? Like, if it's in the contract, there's nothing they can do, and they'll have to back pay you or rectify that deficiency retrospectively. If it's in the contract, there's nothing they can do about it.
That's what I mean. And if it maybe somebody, if you didn't look at it and it could be missed, the wording of a recruiter, the way they word something, but when you sign something, it depends on the job. The next one here is, it's a two-part. I kind of like it. A new boss is brought in, and that comes into like you're denied a transfer, raise, or promotion with no explanation. When a new boss is brought in, normally that's either one because say like the VP was let go or the VP was moved over, they promoted somebody. Some people don't get along with the new boss. They've been, compliant with, let's just say Jennifer, and Jen's been my boss for 10 years and now I have somebody else. That sometimes can, make problems with some people. If they don't get along, now all of a sudden you get all this tenure and you got a boss that doesn't like you.
I mean, that's part of the game. And, there is a absolute insurmountable amount of peer-reviewed studies out there that show that change is not something easily accepted. And it's partly been elucidated in the IT sector with new UI, new programs, applications. People are not very receptive.
Right.
And the mitigating factor was the managerial team, usually the first line level. Boring stuff aside, that's something you have to deal with.
Right.
And I think the best way to deal with that is to have kind of a empirical data trail, because you get someone new in, whether the VP moved up to kind of some kind of regional level or national level, you're gonna have to start over, right? Because that rapport is important. Because even in that vertical, mobility, you're not just looking at, I did this, I did that. It's I like you, you're a go-getter, you work with people well. There's that other soft skills that go into the, the whole calculation, the whole equation. So
and when you said that too, is I don't think it's all an issue when a boss is brought in, because they might see somebody that they really, the employee working next to you that they might connect a little bit differently on some kind of level. And yes, can it be like some people say pet peeve or whatever like that, but it always doesn't mean that. There again, you assume all this, and all this issues can really take a thing on your health, your family, because you assume. You go home, you're upset. Maybe it's not a reason.
David, what's the fear there exactly?
What's that?
So that's a negative fear, right?
Yeah, I would say negative fear is like when a newer boss comes in, say all of a sudden they just want to change everything all around. You've been doing the same thing, and you said it before, change. You said change, you got to accept it.
So one of the things I learned from Dr. Jordan Peterson, I'm a big advocate for his work, is perspective. He also looks at things, multivariate analysis. So let me try to do a positive fear. It's a negative fear or a new boss coming in. What about a positive fear? You're being promoted to region, right? You're regional. Now you're becoming executive level, and you have all these new people. No one you've met yet, other than the people of the board that you interviewed with. It's the same exact interpersonal issue, but you're making a positive step for your career, for your family.
And that makes a lot of sense.
It's the same thing. So don't necessarily look at it as, this really big negative. You might actually get a better relationship with that new VP. You might be able to, leverage that to propel yourself to where you need to be. So it doesn't have to be a negative thing. And I think a mindset is what's really holding a lot of people back, for sure.
And that makes sense. I like that. Wow. All right. Hey, Roger, I got my other cousin here on. It must be cousin night on social media. My cousin Roger. How you doing, guy? Um, the next part, to transfer, raise, or no promotion or no explanation. Now, I understand with no explanation. That makes sense.
Okay.
If you don't get a reason. Do you feel that if you're overpassed, the other person's been there less time? A lot of people say, well, he's only been here for five months and I've been here for 6 years. I believe now that you need to, there's ways to go to your manager and talk about that. You know, just, I think, being honest with them. Like, somebody was promoted before myself and I really felt I could do that position. I don't think there's a problem with having a sit down.
No.
You know,
I think it's the way you approach it, for sure. The way you frame the question, because you're like, why'd you pick him over me? Is very kind of like direct, you know, very, you know, I think if you reframe it to what can I do? What could I have done?
Right.
I think frames it into a more conducive conversation to receiving actual relevant information, rather than one of those answers you give to someone to, all right, well, back to work, have a nice day, you know.
And that's what I feel there. It's always the mindset of,
and the approach,
negative, because if you speak with that person, they said, well, if you would do this more, if you would do this, if you would do this, then at least if you did all this, you know, all the stuff you were told to do, then at least you could go back to the management and say, listen, I've done all this, you know. And again, it's just a conversation.
Yes.
You know, again, it doesn't mean you're going to be let go because of that reason. I wouldn't say.
Right.
You know, it just means that person might have something else different. One of the last things, and I'm going to change the subject on, is you feel burnout while you hate your job anyway. That's a real good one. Wow. I mean, get it.
Each role has a burnout anyway. I mean,
yeah, you start.
Okay, let's say, you know, you can be VP of sales, you can be a PM, you can be anything really. It has a burnout rate. You're not going to do any one job for 10 years. And even 6 years is kind of a lot for any single job.
It is. That's average. I believe they're like saying years ago it was like, say, about 3 moves maybe within your career. Now,
is that position or is that company?
Companies.
Okay, yes, that's
because you don't have those companies that you spend 35 years in the industries anymore. The manufacturing that people just had, the government jobs, 30, 40 years. You know,
it's changed generationally, for sure.
Changed. All right, the next one is, and it goes back to Rob, is, you know, about when you're let go, about remaining professional. You know, what do you do? Do you stay off of social media? Do you say negative things on social media? And let me go back to here. I know it written out here. 1 second. Let me find it here. Look at that. Yeah, I didn't have it on there. Nope, I got it. I'm doing good here. All right. When employees, there we go. All right. Sorry. Do not use social media as a diary. Makes sense. You know, especially Facebook. Don't lose control. Your anger, you know, if you're anger at the employer, you know, you got to let it go. I mean, I would say there, don't lie, don't lose faith, know your rights. You know, this one here, recommend start reading. That's different.
I think you can address it down the road as a retrospective in a way that you don't kind of describe who you're talking about. Kind of like in a lessons learned diary is fine. But again, that's not something you do a week or two after, for sure.
That's what I mean. And that part there is just like what Rob was saying, and it's being professional. We're going to back to this one here because I really feel about being fired to potential employers again. We're going to go over a couple things that this says here is about honesty is the best policy. Review the incident or issue that caused you to lose your job with an unbiased eye. What would you do in a situation like that? You're being interviewed right now about if you were let go for, let's say, a performance problem.
Okay.
Do you go in there and say, well, I was let go because I didn't do my job correctly? Or again, you got 10, 15 years. What do you say?
Oh, golly. I mean, again, we go back to KPIs, right? And the standard metric. I mean, if you're trying to say, hey, you're not meeting your budget as a PM, right? Right. And you're using this antiquated method, and it's like, hey, listen, you know, it's in the middle of winter here. It's snow. There's ice. We are losing days because of weather. We can't do this because of the wind, and so on and so forth. And you're, you know, that 10% slack that you have built into the budget is now 20% because of a seasonality and variable issue and variance, you know, over, across that final quarter.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're definitely not going to meet the KPIs that are required for your performance review. So again, I would say definitely be able to quantify what happened. And again, that's a real professionalist kind of approach to being able to kind of identify the fact that maybe they didn't deserve you, or
Right.
maybe you
I
just
like
messed
that.
up too.
That's
for
a
sure.
good way to say that. Yeah. Because I don't, it says don't sound bitter when you're doing your job interview. You don't want to sound like kind of angry or not like bitter. Like, well, I had the boss, or they didn't let me do this. Everything was,
Right.
they didn't let me do. I think you need to reverse that, because I think when somebody's interviewing, yourself, they're going to know.
Right.
They can
Yeah.
tell, and one of the parts I wanted to bring up to you, which you're going to like, I know this, you're going to like this, is
Oh boy.
executives engage in negative nonverbals while you're offering your ideas. This is critically important because someone's nonverbals are often more revealing than what they say.
The verbal.
Easiest negative nonverbal include eyelid flutters, lip compression, or whatever, eyebrow furrowing, and a failure to look in your eyes, shake your hand, and smile. I knew you would like this one.
Yeah, that goes into body language, and verbal part of language is only like, I think, I'm gonna throw an arbitrary number at like 30%. If you have a conversation, this is why teleconference is absolutely garbage. You don't want to ever do teleconference, and even honestly, video conference is only second to in person. It's crossing your arms, it's leaning back in your chair, it's crossing your legs, it's leaning forward to the right. It's the inflection of your questions. It's like, well, what if you did do that, or what if you did that? It's all about the way you kind of present it and execute it. So yeah, absolutely, the negative. You can feel that even people who don't really identify those cues, those nonverbal cues, as we call them in psychology. It's kind of, we call that, I guess you call it, an intangible feeling, right? An aura, right? It's something you have to have kind of an emotional intelligence. Another psychology term I love, but
I knew you would love that question. I knew.
That's fun.
But when you're in a meeting, you can tell. Listen, you got 5 or 6 people in a meeting around the table, and there's tense. If you feel one person is just, ready to leave, or that person that feels like they're going to be let go, you feel it. I don't care who you are. You're in that meeting. The way they sit, their eyes, you can just tell they're not listening, and that can really take an effect.
Yeah, no, it goes both ways though, because understand the person you're talking to, and not just giving them verbal cues or nonverbal cues back. They could be shy, they could be non-confident, so they're not going to make eye contact for more than a second, and then flutter off to somewhere else. Right. And when you're doing it the whole time, you can be intimidating them, and then make them feel uncomfortable, and make them kind of more aversive in nature. Yeah. So it's a checkers game of, a game of chess. Yeah, for sure.
That's my favorite one. I'm telling you. If out of all this,
it's only 2 colors.
Language is the body language and the way you're looking at people. Because if you're not interested, and we're talking right now, I would feel it.
For
you'd
sure.
Be like, wow, that person's not even paying attention. This next one is a good one. And first of all, it said before you get fired, should you use all your sick days before quitting? If you're going to quit, that was a funny one. Should you use all your sick days? And this guy suggests take your sick days, before you resign. And then it goes into, would you give a 2 weeks notice, which I've always believed in. And they said companies now, if you give your 2 weeks notice, some of them are just saying, go ahead and go. I mean, that's just not respectful.
So there's 3 things there, right? There's give the 2 weeks. Yep. There's give the 2 weeks, no, go now. And there's give the 2 weeks and, okay, I understand you're leaving. If you need to leave early, I understand that. Right. I want what's best for you and your family. If you're not eating at our table, I still want you to eat at yours. Right. So there's 3 different, kind of avenues to go from there. And, when I look at a company, and the one I'm at now is fantastic. It's a company, right. They work as family, it's culture. If I wanted to leave tomorrow, they'd be like, God bless you, good luck. If you ever need to come back, let us know. And, that's the kind of company you want to work for. No. So if you're not at that company, that's probably didn't ask the right questions in the interview in the first place. That's just my opinion. However, I'm not, judging. And
and everybody has difference. That's what these questions are about. And somebody else might be thinking right now a different way. And, would I use my sick days? Listen, if I didn't care, or some people would, I'd be like, all right, I'm going to call off sick. I'm going to be letting go every week. But there again, you're assuming this.
Yes.
And then give a 2-week notice. I've always believed in that. If anybody ever tells me, could I give a 2-week notice right off the bat, I would respected that. Yes.
It's usually 2 weeks and then 3 weeks for executive level, but yes.
Yep. And I agree with that. I mean, I really like that.
Yes.
And then it was saying, is it okay to resign immediately if you're being treated verbally? I'm sorry, if you're resigning immediate because of verbal resignation, or should you do it in writing? I mean, I like the writing part to resign, but
yeah,
I
think that when you deal with that, it's tough because you want to make sure that it depends on the company, right? Because I like to have a verbal conversation first versus doing the writing first.
Right.
It's not always. I mean, it works with like confidence, confidentiality, integrity, credibility. So those are all things that you have to. What's that part of us? The IMA.
You're thinking your hat on. Your think hat on.
So it's something I dealt with I don't know, like a year ago.
Daryl says they go to reduce risk, and I agree, Daryl. Again, it's all the different fields, industries. Especially, it does. I mean,
right. If you're working in the military sector, with like a top secret clearance, it's not that easy, especially when you're a contractor. But other companies, it's fine.
All right, this last question, I want to see what you feel is. It's kind of, what is a good day? When do good employees? I'm sorry. Why do good employees get fired first?
Good employees get fired first.
Yeah, why do good employees get fired first? And I'm like, because here it's saying they get positive attention from their managers and they're outdoing them and outshowing. It was just the one question the one guy had. I
feel like there could be a few reasons for that. I mean, I haven't actually experienced that myself, but I would say that there is insecurities from upper levels that feel they could take their job and they're not fitting with the culture, and they're tryhards in a culture of complacency, which is, kind of a cancer, culturally contagious.
And that makes sense.
That's the only thing I can think of, honestly. So I would say it's good employees get fired first, unless they're working skeleton crews where they only need a T structure. It's some people know a lot of something and a lot of people know a little something, or vice versa. It depends on the structure of the company. But
one more. What do you feel companies let go an employee during Monday through Friday in the AM or PM after work?
You said again, I'm sorry?
What do you feel about some candidates? Would you let them go? Do people let them go on a Friday? Is that a good thing sometimes now? Or right now the standard is on a Tuesday for some reason. I did some research on them, like Tuesdays, because it gives HR 1 day prior to let the person go. That doesn't make sense.
So I think that whole standard is garbage, honestly. You're supposed to have this, I would say servant leadership comes first, and putting the employee first, because making the culture and sending the message to the other employees that, you are valuable. Even if it doesn't work out, I'm going to make sure you're taken care of, and we have a transition plan. So letting them go on a Tuesday, like last minute, no, heck no. If you're not giving them 2 weeks notice, you're not. I mean, people got families, they got kids, they got responsibilities. This is do or die, life and death, homeless and not homeless. So why would you have that disrespect for them if you want? If you're like, as Daryl said, you want 2 weeks notice to leave the company, 3 weeks for an executive position, but you're not going to give them more than a day or two. No, that's. I don't even care if you're the worst employee, unless you're stealing or doing something unethical, immoral, or illegal. You should be giving them the same respect that you are asking from them. If you're not, you're probably not a very good company to work for.
That's what I mean. And it all goes to, like, a lot of people comment on, say they've had tenure, and you watch somebody, I think we've all been there, at the end of the day where they see, a call comes in, it's HR, and you see the boss coming in, you're like, oh, geez, they're getting let go. To me, I don't know the right answer to that. Is all I know is I would not have it why your team is in the office, like in the morning. I wouldn't want to do that, because then it just takes everybody apart, the mood, your mood. to me, I think, like you said, out of respect, you gotta have respect for that candidate, whether or not whatever goes on. You like you said about the family,
Yeah.
he's a person, she or she's a person. They're going to be upset. You're going to be upset because I've always said if you enjoy letting somebody go, something's wrong with you. If you enjoy it, because some people are like, oh, I'll fire him right off the bat. It's like, you know what? That's not right.
No.
Have you
Unless they're like, again, unethical, immoral, or illegal, you should probably give them the respect, because those actions are kind of echoed and reverberated in the culture of the company, and that's not a good look for the people.
I like that, the way you said that. I mean, that's why I'm glad I had you on here tonight, is because when you think of it that way, the culture of it, that shows the culture.
Absolutely.
Again, when you said, about stealing that or something like that, that's different. That's, if you've done something really bad to the company, they listen.
Yes.
Let them go. That's fine. But if it's out of respect in your culture and other people see this, they're going to feel like, wow, they just let that person go like that.
Absolutely.
And they're going to be scared when somebody new comes in. They're going to be scared. And if it trends to be that way, that's why I'm glad you said about the culture of it, because then anybody new coming in, you're going to be the type of person to say, oh, no, they just fire you here. Oh, they don't give you nothing, And this is the kind of things that I take seriously with people, because it's their life. You see it. You see it in their eyes when you're letting somebody go. They said it should take 10 minutes for a termination meeting. And I'm like, 10 minutes? This was some of the research I looked at. I was like, 10 minutes? That's all it should be. It's like, wow, in 10 minutes, I'm going to let somebody know. I've been laid off, works on management side, months of prep, and then let them go last minute. There again, it comes back, like you said, the company culture.
Yeah, I mean, there's companies that are seasonal, that are volatile, and if that's a presupposition when you hire them in their contract and they're aware of that, and obviously not going to hire someone with a family and 8 kids and a wife, or 4 kids or 3 kids or whatever.
And that's
so
hard.
It depends on, like I said, industry. This whole conversation tonight is very industry specific because it changes across. But professionally speaking, no, you definitely want to make sure you're not putting them out in the street, because that's not someone that you want.
And I would ending up here, my closing statement would be to anybody is, if you're going through anything that we talked about tonight, again, these were just conversations that me and Travis had tonight. It doesn't mean that we're correct. Everything has a story. But if you are having issues at work and you want to try to solve it, my suggestions: go to HR, go to your boss. Maybe it's about somebody else. Go to your manager, have a closed door, talk to them. If they don't respect what you say, if you feel, any good manager should listen to their employee. Take away, why you're feeling stressed. We don't want you to feel that way. You shouldn't come to work feeling that way. So my would say is just really lean on your management. If that one manager doesn't work, go to the next. And the chain of command, I know, but I believe in the chain of command, not only because of military, but I believe it gives you that that middle person. Well, they didn't come to me. I didn't know. So that's on my closing note that I recommend. And Travis, if you have anything you want to add.
I would say, honestly, people go through hard times, especially currently with COVID and, fluctuations in the market and investments and everything going on.
Right.
Just try to look at things through a multivariate analysis, a scope that is not of your own, but also just basically multiple angles. You don't want to just sit there and be negative and pessimistic.
Right.
Be optimistic too. Look at both. It's probably somewhere between, or maybe not where you want or think it may be. Like I said, when that manager door closes, it might not be about you. Even if it is about you, it might be positive for moving up. So every move and thought you should make is preparation for the worst and hope for the best. If you don't do that, you're probably setting yourself up for failure.
And that says it right there. Travis, I want to thank you. Travis is in New Mexico. Where at you in New Mexico exactly, Travis?
Artesia for now.
Where's that near? I don't even know.
It's almost Mexico. So
Is it? Wow.
yes,
Wow.
yes.
Well, I wish you luck, and we'll have you back on
Yes,
here.
sir.
I always enjoy talking with you. It's a great, he's
Absolutely.
a great colleague. Reach out to him. A lot of project management experience, like 15, 18 years he's been in that. And, reach out, please. And thank you, everybody. And have a great night. And we're going to end it right here. And we'll see you tomorrow.